All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 2 of Voices of the Code. Today, we have a great episode in store for you because we have special guest Alexander Six. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Karl, you want to say hi?
Hi, I'm Karl.
Co-host of Voices of the Code. So let's move right into this thing. Alex, you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Alex. I currently work as a senior software engineer for Zillow Group. We are a tech company in the United States that does a lot with real estate. If you live in the U.S. and you've ever tried to purchase a house, rent an apartment, you've likely seen us. If you don't, you might not have heard of us, but go check us out on the website. I mean, I think we do some pretty cool stuff. I live in upstate South Carolina with my wife and 2 kids and Corgi, who y'all might see running around in the background. At some point, she's paced around the office. And then in my free time, a little of it as, you have with 2 kids and a dog, I help out with doing DevRel for Filament. We're a tall stack UI kit application builder. Kind of started calling us just like a meta framework on top of Laravel and using Livewire and Alpine and all that. So
Can
help out
can
there.
we refer
That's
to
ton
you
of
as
fun.
just the everything framework? It's the
it kind of
batteries
feels
on
like
top
it.
of Laravel's already full batteries.
Yeah, it's like on those old ThinkPad laptops where they had like the external batteries that you could plug in on the outside in the case. We're like that. Like Laravel's the internal battery, and we're like that extra like 20-watt battery you can shove in the back of your computer.
Or if you have the new framework laptops, it's the battery you can pull off the back and put a GPU into.
Exactly.
There you
Yeah.
Steven's like, yeah, I totally know what you're talking about right now.
No, I actually do, which is funny. The framework laptops are awesome. Hey, before we get into any of the technical stuff, how did you and your community in South Carolina do with Hurricane Helene?
Yeah, so we personally ended up, I mean, beyond lucky. Like nothing more than debris dropped kind of around our house. Our neighbors across the street had a massive tree like go through the second story of their house. So it very easily, could have been us. We evacuated for probably about a week. Thankfully, my parents live down in Columbia, so we just drove down there the day that everybody lost power. So we missed all the traffic. We knew to evacuate because we didn't have any food, because we didn't prepare, because no one knew the storm was really going to affect upstate South Carolina as bad as it did. And so we drove to Waffle House, and Waffle House was closed. And that's when I was like, that's it. We got to go. We got to get out of here. If
Waffle House is
not
closed, it's too late.
We can't do it. So we made it out. We did okay. We definitely didn't get hit nearly as bad as Western North Carolina. They are in much worse shape than we are. So we luckily, as a kind of a Greenville community, have we're not entirely past it. There are still people without power, without internet. Some people are still out of their homes because of damage, but by and large, as a community, we have been able to come together and start moving supplies up to North Carolina, moving volunteers up to North Carolina as much as allowed, just trying to get everybody back on their feet. I mean, it was, I could talk for a long time. It was shocking how unexpected it was.
I feel like there's... go ahead, Karl.
Steven and I had a talk with John from Thunk, and he was telling us about Daniel and his situation. I was like, geez, dude, that's rough.
Yeah. Yeah, they got hit much worse than we did. So really hoping that everybody's going to be okay up there. There's a lot to sort through still.
Yeah. I grew up in Florida, and so I'm really used to hurricanes. But in fact, my family just went through one this morning and last night.
Right.
But luckily, all of them are fine, so we're good. But man, I feel like there's just a lot of people that live, hours and hours away from the beach and middle of the country, and they're like, I've never expected to have to deal with this sort of a thing because of a hurricane, and now they have. So really, really caught them off guard.
Yeah.
So, okay. But, I feel like I have to bring something in on this one because it's kind of funny. I live in Houston. We get wiped off the face of the map every 3 years. So it's kind of funny when you think about a hurricane's coming. Great, prep for that because that's normal thing here. But then you hear about North Carolina and South Carolina having no clue. Okay, we just have extra water for fun.
Yeah.
It's hard when the communities aren't built to drain water, right? nothing about the mountainous areas of the Carolinas is built to divert water anywhere other than the rivers that it's already flowing down. So,
yeah. And then they just storm surge like crazy. All right. Well, let's try to move on to slightly more optimistic topics.
Let's keep the jokes high.
Yeah. Right. I'm glad to hear. From what I understand, most people, they're really coming together and stuff. Where that's like the great thing about it's amazing how much people come together whenever in times of need. But all right, so all that aside, can you let us know what got you into programming, web development, Laravel specifically, wherever you want to start on that journey?
Yeah, sure. So it all started when I was born. No, I'm kidding. I was in college. I went to Clemson to be an engineer. Both my parents were engineers. Pulp and paper, which did not end out too well with the rise of technology. So my dad ended up going into electrical, but I was like, I'm going to be an engineer. Went to Clemson my freshman year, walked in on day one of my engineering course, and I remember the professor saying, all right, we're going to do a whole unit on converting units. And I was like, great, yeah, I can figure this out. Like, I'm decent enough at math. And he's like, we're going to use the ladder method. And I was like, okay, that means he's going to teach us this thing called the ladder method. And he's like, first problem, wrote it on the board, and everybody else in the room is doing what I can only assume was the ladder method to convert these units. And I was like, oh no, this is bad. I'm already way behind on day one. And so I tried to stick through it and just was not good at engineering and converting units, did not have the patience for it. God bless the people who are engineers because they're a different breed, man.
What kind of engineer?
So I didn't even make it past general. I was going to do electrical.
Oh, okay.
That was the idea, electrical or chemical,
okay.
Because that's my parents did, and that's all I really knew. But I didn't even make it past the general engineering course. So I was kind of floundering after that and, didn't really know what to do. Hadn't undeclared my major for second semester. Hadn't really thought about much else. And I ended up getting a phone call from a mentor of mine from back when I was in high school who lived just across town from where I grew up in Columbia, South Carolina. Mm-hmm. And he was like, hey, I've got a weird proposition for you. I know you're trying to get into some technology stuff. I've got a small web development startup. Do you want to come intern for us over the summer? And I was like, I mean, yeah, it sounds interesting enough. I'll think about it. He's like, we'll pay you. And I was like, I will be there. I will show up every day. I am a broke college student. I got loans to pay, man. So I did. So I went. And yeah, I mean, long story short, we started off doing mostly WordPress sites, but then we got asked to build an actual web application. WordPress was just not doing the numbers. It was not fun to build a whole actual application with WordPress. And so we tried out this. Yeah, we tried out this whole new thing called Laravel 4.2, and the rest is kind of history. Been using it really ever since.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Dang. Okay. So a while ago. That's pretty sweet. Sweet. And what was so did you end up going to school then for computer science or?
I did. Yeah. So I ended up going back the following year as a computer science major. Yep. Okay. And graduated my computer science degree, which admittedly I don't use as much as I would probably like. It was mostly programming in C and C++ at Clemson, big research university. So a lot of theoretical classes, but I think it also just taught me how to learn. I was one of those kids who just definitely needed kind of a kick in the pants to actually buckle down and learn the stuff and read the documentation and sift through the man pages. So it was good for me for sure.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, understanding the foundational elements to how computers work is pivotal. I feel like there's so many people that they could go through a boot camp or whatever and they don't actually know what data structure is sitting behind a PHP array and stuff.
Yeah.
Which is actually very complicated, but
right. Yeah.
I don't know, things like that. They just have no idea how a lot of this magic works because they're 12 layers of abstraction above the C layer, much less below that. So.
Yeah, it doesn't come up often, but when it does, it's really helpful to know what's going on.
I say this from personal experience. I've started doing Casey's course and ongoing thing for performance oriented code, and I actually remember what the title of it is anymore, but it's really, really cool for him to break down okay, so we're starting with x86 instruction codes and then working our way up from there, and it's really cool. So Nice.
That's awesome. So, what drew you to Laravel specifically? Was it just that job that got you in that role, or was there something that was like, or what? I guess the other question I guess we could ask is, what makes you stick with Laravel?
Yeah, so obviously the job was what initially put me on the path for Laravel. And I think a lot of it was, well, it was twofold. I think one, I was so dissatisfied with trying to build full-fledged applications with WordPress that I was like, there has to be something better. And then we found literally anything better. Like Laravel, obviously I'm biased, but I think is the best of the PHP frameworks. But anything better at that point would have been like a godsend for what we were doing. So that definitely obviously piqued my interest. So like, this is really cool. This is really nice. I think on, fast forward to today, right, where I'm even working at a rather large tech corporation that we're the only Laravel application, as far as I'm aware. I think there's a couple other PHP ones, but I think we're the only ones on Laravel. And we stick with it and we fight for it because of the ridiculously high level of productivity you can achieve with Laravel while still achieving enterprise level results, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Like the reliability of the framework, the efficiency and the performance of the framework are good enough, especially with the infrastructure that we've been able to build for our app, that we can go blow to blow with the Java apps and the Go apps and the Next.js apps that Zillow is deploying all over the place. So it's hard to beat, man. It's really hard to beat Laravel.
Yeah, we have 7 applications in production, all enterprise ready in Zillow, or not in Zillow, in Laravel. I would love to get it working in Zillow. Give me a call. Look, get my people to call your people. It'd be fine.
I had so many other things I wanted to ask you right then, Alex, but I have to like completely derail where my thought train was going, because what you just said is really interesting to me. We're like, you are in, I feel like, one of these rare situations where you are kind of working for a really large organization, but your day-to-day is a part of a much smaller team within the Goliath, right?
Right, yeah.
Can you kind of help paint the picture, if you're privy to any of this, but like help us kind of, understand how your team running Laravel is viewed from like the greater organization and like executives and stuff that I don't even know where they would start for understanding any of the technical choices that are going on, but just you guys being like the, I can't even remember what the term is, the black sheep or whatever, that's just sort of over there running your own thing. Help me understand how that is framed within the great organization.
Yeah, for sure. So I've got, I guess, one disclaimer, one funny story, and then I'll launch into it. The disclaimer is I obviously only know up to my very particular role working at Aereo. It's like the team that I'm on, the product that I work on at Zillow. So obviously there could be larger things at play that I'm not privy to. However, that is where my perspective is coming from.
Okay.
Funny story. I was probably 3 weeks into working at Zillow when I went on a company or organization-wide retreat and was helping to give a talk about what is Aereo to the wider org. And that's because Aereo was just acquired last year by Zillow.
Right.
So we're still relatively new compared to, Zillow, which has been around since, I think, 2006, give or take.
A while.
It's been around a while. Yeah. And in that talk, one of the things that I was going to talk about was what our tech stack was, because even though I was new to the team, I have been doing Laravel for long enough to know what Laravel is. And I vividly remember when I was like, yeah, we're a Laravel app, we're built on PHP. Some guy in the back of the room was just like, boo.
That sounds like our C# guys. That sounds exactly like our C# guys.
Great. It was obviously a jest. It was funny, but I was just like, oh, good. This is, week 3 of being here, and I'm already the PHP guy. But but in general, I think at least from my own personal experience, this kind of speaks to Zillow's wider belief about work. As long as the apps are making our customers happy, like customers are our North Star. Like it's such a cheesy, kitschy thing from people who don't think that companies mean that, but we genuinely are obsessed with our customers, with our users. If our application is doing what it needs to do and more, and enthralling our users when they use our app, then Zillow corporate doesn't really care, it seems, what the technology is. We're really productive on Laravel. We've built a piece of software that people really like real estate photographers really, really like.
Right.
And we have no intention of changing that. So yeah, it's not viewed negatively in any way. Zillow just really likes to, on a corporate level, give us the tools that we need to go out and build great software for our users.
Yeah.
I
would love to be like a couple layers up the corporate ladder in some of these conversations and just be like, how's that team doing? That, sub organization, and like, wow, their velocity per developer is amazing. And I don't know, knowing hosting costs and like getting like the full picture, because it's like so interesting that's Zillow does represent this one umbrella that so many different technologies and teams at play that they like guys just have really cool insight, I'm sure, into the comparative nature of all of these different things that doesn't come up too much.
It's
super cool.
Yeah, it's fun to make comparisons, especially because right now, I mean, I'm working obviously with Laravel, but I'm working really close with a couple of other teams that are built on completely different stacks. And so it's funny when we all have to build kind of towards the same feature, because we're all integrating, coming together. And for certain things, we're done in like a day. And other people are like, okay, that's going to take us 2 weeks. I got to put it on a sprint. And, we've got to like dedicate time to it because it's going to be a haul. And there's other stuff where people are like, oh, yep, already got that library implemented. We're good to go. And we're sitting here like, how do you integrate this with Laravel again? Is there a driver? Oh, no, we have to write our own. Okay, here we go. So it is fun. It's fun to be able to compare between all these different tech stacks.
So does everybody all the developers use the same type of software? Like, are you guys all using Jira, or is like one part using Jira and somebody else is using like Linear? What does that look like for you guys?
So as far as project management goes, we try to consolidate as much as we can because we do talk across teams, especially at the work that we're doing, working more with real estate agents and real estate photographers. We tend to work with all the other people who are also looking at those same real estate agents. And so we try to consolidate as much as we can. Because we were recently acquired, we still have some slight differences and outstanding tech stack choices that we are trying to transition over to. Like we use Linear right now, and we really like it. But I don't think other teams use Linear within Zillow. And so that's one of those things where it's not the core tech stack. So yeah, like by all means, let's move stuff around if we have to. We're not under a lot of pressure to move, it seems, but at the same time, like we it's helpful for everybody to be on the same page, and we're totally fine with that. I mean, let me keep Laravel, do whatever you want. Like, does not matter.
I'll
to me
switch
one
to
little
Jira. I don't care if I can keep Laravel.
Yeah. And listen, if there's like a whole, because I know it's, again, I only have so much knowledge at the level I'm at, but a lot of these big companies that I've worked with, just like in a consulting role at prior jobs, have whole teams that are like spinning up Jira, whatever, instances, servers for people. Like, if Zillow's got a whole team, yeah, by all means, go manage the Jira settings and the permissions. I'll use it. I just don't want to have to configure it. That's the piece that I'm not looking forward to with Jira.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So let's flip the script on you a little bit here. What about Filament? How does that whole team work together? I understand that you're on the DevRel side, but you still interact with the.
Oh yeah, plenty. So the Filament, I call them the Filament core team, but you can call them maintainers, whatever you want to call them. We work pretty much like your standard asynchronous distributed open source. I almost call it open source software, kind of open source suite of softwares at this point. Right. We all have our certain areas that we specialize in. So like Dan is kind of the brains behind the whole thing. He can kind of dip in wherever he wants. You've got Zep, who's been working mostly on the UI. You've got Adam, who's been working mostly on plugins. We've got some folks who are purely focused on support like maintaining our support channels and our help channels. And you've got me who does the DevRel side of things for the most part. But we also all kind of slide between the different roles kind of as they're needed, or as we have inspiration to, you know, build or work on a certain piece of the app. Most of our communication is just done async through Discord, which makes it really easy because there's not a whole lot of, so there's not a whole lot of meetings. I think we've had one all-team meeting since I've been on the team. So like there's not a lot of synchronous work going on there, but it still works just as well. I mean, we're churning out more stuff than we ever have in preparation for the next version of Filament. So it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of good people working on the Filament team.
Yeah, I think that helps tremendously. Like, the more competent and self-starter type individuals that you have on a team, the less management you really need. You can kind of give them a direction and then just like get it going, and then everybody just naturally sort of figures out what to do.
Right.
So yeah, cool. Do you want to like rewind the clock a little bit and kind of go back to your earlier career and bring us up to where you are today? So like, what was some of the first stuff that you were doing professionally out of school and stuff like that?
Yeah. So right out of school, I just kept working at that same company that I had worked for that one summer. So throughout college, I worked full-time over the summers and then part-time during the school year, just, you know, paying down college debts, and honestly getting so much experience. It was unbelievable because it was the two owners and myself for a long time. And only one of the owners was technical. The other one was kind of the business ops and design owner. So it was me literally sitting at a folding table in this very dark windowless garage next to the technical founder, and just like learning and just gleaning information off of him as frequently as I could. So I worked there out of college. They had built up a whole team with developers, designers, QA. And then shortly after that, well, maybe not shortly, a couple years after that, I happened to be put in contact with a marketing and advertising firm out of Louisville, Kentucky, who needed a director of technology. And so they were doing a lot of their work in Laravel. They're also doing a lot of their work in Shopify and Webflow, and thought it'd be kind of an interesting change of pace to kind of learn the more commercial, like e-com side of tech. And so I jumped over there for a couple of years and helped lead their dev team, and their, I guess you call it ad tech, the tech side of their ad tech team. So that was fun. Learned a lot about Shopify, learned a lot about Webflow, which I still think is a really cool tool, by the way, for a no-code, low-code kind of website builder. It's really, really good. Then after that, I went to work for a couple of years at Kirschbaum. They're a Laravel partner. They've, you know, sponsored Laracons and all that jazz. Worked there for a couple of years and then found my way to Zillow.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
And Kirschbaum is now... Are they the direct sponsor of Filament? What is that relationship again?
Yeah, so that's actually kind of a funny story. So I was working at Kirschbaum.
Is that how you kind of got into the Filament scene?
So it's actually the other way around. I am how Kirschbaum got into Filament.
Cool. Okay.
So I was working at Kirschbaum, and I was live streaming Laravel development as well as some other stuff. I had like a twice weekly live stream that I would do, and I was building a tall stack app at one point and was just really frustrated with having to rebuild the same things over and over again. Like, oh gosh, all right, let me go build forms again. This is obviously well before Caleb released Flux, which I would have killed for back then. That would have been the perfect solution here. And Adam actually popped into my chat and was like, hey, you should try Filament. And the rest is history. Tried it, loved it, was obsessed with it.
Yeah.
And I remember we were on a retreat in Boston, and I was talking to our owner, Nathan, and I was like, hey, we've got to like try this Filament thing. It's going to be big. Also, we need to hire Dan before somebody else hires Dan. And push came to shove. Eventually, I'm sure it was like inspired by me in some regard, but I obviously am not taking credit for any of this. They hired Dan and brought him on. And by bringing Dan on, they are, they allow us to they allow Dan, I don't work there anymore, to actively contribute to Filament and build up Filament. And in return, they are acting as one of Filament's official Filament sponsors, or excuse me, Filament partners. And because of that, now on our partners page, you've got Dan's listing, Zep's listing, and then Kirschbaum is there as well. And it's like, hey, if you want an agency that can help you with Filament, here's the one where the guy literally works there.
Yeah, like this is
you'd
the
be hard
crew.
pressed to beat this one. Yeah.
Right. Do you know if he basically just works full time on Filament, or is he doing?
So he does a mixture.
Okay.
He does, I think it's primarily contract work. I don't know the exact details of the contract, but he gets like dedicated time weekly, like a good amount of dedicated time weekly to work on Filament on company time.
That's
Again,
awesome.
from what I understand, I'm not super privy to that anymore.
Right.
But the idea being, and I think Dan would say the same thing, as I hope I'm not speaking for him out of turn, but the idea
We'll
is
get him
that
on next week.
have him on. He loves this stuff. By doing the consulting work and actually using Filament in production projects, he's learning way more about how the packages need to be built, what needs to be added, what doesn't need to be added. There's a lot of features of Filament version 3 that came into the framework as a whole that were completely taken from very specific needs of the applications he was working on for work, from what I understand. I don't know what those applications were, but that's what I'm told.
Cool. Very tight feedback loop, it sounds like.
Well, it's important, right? Because you can build your own meta framework or whatever we're going to call it, series of packages in a vacuum, and you could build the things you think are cool, but they might be completely useless to people. But if you were actively using the software every day and dog fooding your own stuff, it's so easy to build things that people actually want and can actually use.
Right. Cool. Where do we want to go from here? Do we want to jump into
him?
Oh, go ahead, Karl. Sorry.
I was going to ask him about his favorite tools and extensions.
Perfect.
I know something crazy about Alex this is going to be fun. So you ready for this, Alex?
Yeah. So are you talking like?
All right. So you sat down at your laptop. You've got some work to do.
Oh boy.
What are we opening?
Oh man, I am cracking open that terminal, man. I do as much of my workflow in the terminal as I can. Big time NeoVim lover. Been using it for years now. So
yeah.
You
have three Vim users on a screen, all with 3 different ways of using Vim. Isn't it impressive?
My gosh. I feel so seen. I feel so heard, I guess.
So I use VS Code and I use Vim inside of VS Code. Steven uses Vim inside of PHP Storm, and Alex uses NeoVim.
Yeah.
I don't fully believe this, because I think if that were true, Karl, Alex would have started this conversation, and the very first thing out of his mouth would have been, I use NeoVim, by the way.
I try to hold it back. I really do. The people at work will tell you it comes up every now and again. I think the other day somebody was like, oh, I got to get into the server and edit this config file. I'll just use Vim. And literally I'm just like lurking in the chat. I just type in Slack like Vim mentioned.
What? Vim mentioned. Share your screen. I got to watch this.
Yeah, man. I love it. I love Vim. It's been so I have pretty terrible like arm and hand joints. And so I rock like the ergonomic mouse, the split ergonomic keyboard, the whole thing. And so the less I can move my hands around the day, the better. And so I ended up switching to Vim somewhat because of that. Also somewhat because I was working for a client that gave me a really underpowered laptop that would just fall over on itself when I tried to boot up PHP Storm. This was a couple years ago. It's much better now with PHP Storm.
This is back before PHP Storm fixed it, so that it doesn't...
Right. Yeah, I would like boot up PHP Storm and the whole computer would freeze. And so I was like, I got to use something lightweight. So I was like, oh, well, here's the lightest weight editor I could find.
Right.
But yeah, I started using it in my, I didn't have to move my hand to the mouse. This is a laptop
with 2 gigs of RAM running Windows Vista and PHP Storm. Here you go.
It was a Mac too. I was shocked.
Oh,
I actually was really, admittedly, it was like an old Intel, like 13-inch Mac. So it was really thin, really hot, and really slow.
Less powerful than the iPads today.
iPad
Pros.
My gosh, yeah.
I got my wife one of the M4 iPads. My goodness, that thing runs circles around my Intel i9 MacBook. It's insane.
Yeah. There's a lot of power packed into those things now.
Yeah,
which is good.
Totally off topic, but super happy with this whole ARM transition in the industry. Like, oh my God.
Yes.
Never hearing my MacBook's fan turn on is like surprisingly a blessing. Like,
yeah.
That's actually how I know when I'm working hard is when the fan on my M2,
your hair is just going all over it.
the M2 kicks in and you're like, okay, hold on, I'm doing something I probably shouldn't be.
When you spit up that like 800th
My
Docker
Mac
container.
is overheating. Yeah.
Yeah, I have like 800 Docker containers running, or it's stuck in a recursive function or something. I don't know. Well,
So
I'm doing something wrong.
do you use Mac today, Alex?
I do, yeah. So
Okay.
we were given a Mac for work, so I use that. I actually have a Linux computer that I use personally. I do also have a MacBook, like a personal MacBook that I take traveling because, I mean, you can't beat the battery life. I was going to say I'm so happy with the ARM transition, but I'm less happy with the ARM transition because Linux doesn't have a lot of support for ARM at the moment. They've got like Asahi Linux that can run on MacBooks. But I don't know if I'm ready to just like wipe macOS off my M1 MacBook yet and just
So I kind of went the
out.
opposite direction with that one. So for me, I was toiling with going with Linux. I was toiling with getting a framework laptop. And then my wife was like, okay, well, whatever you decide to do. And I just sat down and was like, oh my God. All right. Just double down. You're a Mac user. You've been a Mac user since 2007. It's not changing today. Just double down on that.
Yeah. I admittedly I went with so it's a company called System 76. They build Linux computers, built in America, really great company. And actually I used their Linux distro Pop! OS for a long time before I actually bought one of their computers. And their support was kind enough to help me figure out Pop! OS even before I had one of their products. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to buy a computer. I'm going to buy one that I know is going to run Linux. I don't have to worry about, oh, did I get the right RAM and the right GPU, or is it just going to fall over on itself?
Did I buy one with an Intel Wi-Fi card, or is it going to not work?
Right, like just give me something that's going to work. And so I bought this CPU tower, and it just worked out of the box, and it was fantastic. Right. And honestly, it's funny. We were talking about this before the call. I've been having so many problems with my macOS audio drivers in the last couple of weeks on both of my MacBooks, my personal one and my work one. My work one got stuck in a boot loop today. And I think it was because of the audio driver, because I like muted and unmuted really fast, and then the whole computer just exploded on itself. And the running joke is always that like audio drivers on Linux are horrible. They're just always going to break. You're never going to have a good time with audio. And I'm like, man, I haven't had to think about like turning on my Bluetooth headphones and then having them connect to my Linux computer in probably 2 years. And here in the last 2 months, I cannot get my Mac to do it. So it's just, it's been funny in my head that a Linux computer is more reliable for audio, but I still love my Mac. Like they have made some incredible hardware, like mobile hardware. They're just impossible to beat, at least right now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Once you get like really invested in the Mac and just the broader like Apple ecosystem, it's hard to go back. Like my dad is pretty techie, very technical, but like he's still primarily a Windows user. I'm like, he also owns a Mac, and so whenever I'll like be doing stuff with him, I'm just like, oh, Dad, if I just want to sit down with you for like 4 hours and just show you how to use your Mac at like 1000x the productivity, and then you'll love it forevermore.
Do that at Apple. That used to be my job at Apple. Was I would stand there and show people how to use their Macs. I was like, this is a really, really fun job. I get to show people. I used to get the blown away faces when I would hit Command Space and open up Spotlight.
Yes,
and type in messages. And then the people would just be like, I can get my text messages on my Mac? And I'm like, yes, 100% can. And then every one of them was like, college student, I don't need an iPhone anymore. I can just go live in my backpack because I just need to text my friends. And then Instagram and all that kind of stuff came out, and they were like, oh, well, I need my phone again.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally. Yeah. I feel like if I showed him Raycast, he would just like...
Oh, I was about to say, everyone's blown away by Spotlight,
Raycast,
and we immediately just wipe it away and put Raycast on there, or Alfred.
I showed my boss Raycast the other day because I work in the travel industry, and I was like, hey, what airport is HLM? He's like, I don't know, never heard of it. I was like, what if you could ask an app that's running on your Mac what airport HLM is? And he was like, that'd be really cool. And I was like, it's called Raycast. It's already on your Mac. I installed it before you got it.
Wow.
So
Oh man, to do that, do you need the AI extension or not?
no, there's an extension in the store, which is
Okay.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Guys, if you are not using Raycast yet, install it. Go through their extension store and just. I found some of the weirdest things, like the Laravel documentation is available in Raycast without opening up the browser. And then if you hit enter, it will take you directly to the page. And I'm like, this has shaved a couple of seconds off my day, but a couple of seconds over a couple of days can line up pretty quickly.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, if you're not already, if you're using a MacBook, switch to Raycast. Also, I heard recently Raycast is coming to Windows.
Oh,
Okay.
So
I
that
could
could
see
be
that.
kind of interesting.
yeah. There's no excuse to use
Why
it.
not?
When do they come to Linux?
That's a good question. I would like to know, Marcel, please, for the love of God, we need Laravel Herd on Linux. Make it happen.
I have this pipe dream that I literally have notes on my desk about right now, that the same way that DHH made his like opinionated flavor on top of Ubuntu for Rails, but I guess just kind of for development in general. I would love to help build like a layer on top of some Linux distribution to help ease that on-ramp for Laravel developers, because I think there's so much benefit in using Linux directly as a development environment that it would be, I think, I'm obviously a little biased, but I think it'd be a huge net positive to get people more. But to do that, I mean, I feel like we all just kind of take after Taylor at this point, where we're all very picky about what our dev environment is and how it works and how it's set up and what it looks like and how it feels. It doesn't matter if it's like you're picky about like, I don't care, or you're picky about I care a lot. So I feel like that would be a hard bridge to get, a hard gap to bridge. But
you're onto something there, because I think you're 100% right. Because if you think about it, like, oh, that's a mild inconvenience, I'm just not going to do it.
We're kind of
I have to
pampered.
lean over and push the power button on my computer? No. Well, I'm not writing code today.
I mean, even in just writing the code, right, with the Laravel framework, there's so much built in already. And if it's not built in, Spassy probably has a package for it. And if they don't have a package for it, there's probably another third party package out there somewhere for it. But if I get to a point where
if Spassy doesn't have a package for it, you don't need it.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, at some point, I'm like, do I actually need to integrate with this service, or can I get away with something else? Like, we are pampered in the Laravel world.
For sure. I mean, 100%. If we can get Laravel Herd on Linux, I would reopen that conversation with myself, because I was telling Steven this before we started recording. I recently started using Nix, which allows you to like set up everything. Like, here's my Wi-Fi settings for Linux. Set it for me. Then all I have to do is go pull it down, and it will automatically have all the passwords, and I'll have all the things. And so if I like go to the coffee shop tomorrow, I wipe my computer, go to the coffee shop, connect to pull down the script. It just connects to their Wi-Fi. I'm like, what the heck is? It's fantastic.
It's really good.
About it.
It's really good. I spent, I don't know, probably like a week's worth of evenings after the kids went to bed a couple months ago playing with NixOS. I installed it on my like a partition of my machine. I was like,
okay, so you're actually
give it a
using
whirl.
the operating system.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's exactly what you're saying. Like it's all very declarative. It's in a file. Like if you're a big infrastructure as code kind of developer, or anything like that, it's right up your alley. Like it's so nice for easily reproducible systems. Now, why I haven't gone further with it is the nagging thought in the back of my head of, but how often am I going to be actively blowing away my system and wanting to just reinstall everything? Maybe a lot, but I haven't had to yet. So
I think it would get easier if you make it simpler to blow away your computer. You'd probably be more likely to do it. I think Steven and I were talking about this earlier too. Getting a new computer is an opportunity to start over and install all the things you care about. But there's certain things that I know I'm 100% every single time I set up a new computer, I'm going to spend 2 or 3 minutes installing Laravel hurt. It's just gonna happen.
Right.
So why not automate that?
Yeah. It's cool. Yeah. It's a really cool idea. I would like to see it continue. I think they, at least for NixOS, I can't speak as much just to the package management system, which is probably putting it way too lightly, and all the Linux nerds are going to get mad at me in the replies and the comments. But
cancel Alex 6.
Whatever. I think as a whole, once NixOS could settle on this is the right way to build a system with NixOS, they're golden. Because right now you've got flakes, which are experimental technically, but everybody uses them. You've got just like the normal way of doing it that's not flakes. There's not a lock file, so you could get newer packages. Or if you use somebody else's Nix configuration, it might not work because you might have different versions of there's like a whole bunch of little paper cuts like that don't matter by themselves, but I think they add up currently to making it hard for people to onboard. Maybe that's just the theme of tonight, right? Just make it easy to onboard and people will use it.
Yeah,
like don't make the wall so high that it's hard for people to figure out what's going on. NixOS, its own beast, and I love it, but I think that's the one thing they could definitely do.
I think technically we could do what you're talking about with NixOS.
Oh yeah,
I mean, because technically all we have to do is build out a configuration file and just send it out to the world and, hey, download this configuration file and have everything you need already.
So not to dive too nerdily deep into the weeds here, I have considered it very heavily. My only concern is that because of the way Nix manages packages and because NixOS is built on that paradigm, nothing is in the normal Linux folders where you would think it is. Right. So if you already, as a Laravel developer, already have experience deploying your application on like a Debian server or an Ubuntu server, and you're going to go look for, I want to go find my, my
PHP
my
installer.
DNS settings or whatever configuration file, and you go to look for that directory path, it is not going to exist. It's not where you think it is because Nix has stuffed it somewhere else in some sym-linked corner of the operating system because that's how it works. That's how Nix does its thing. It has its own structure. So that's the one thing holding me back because that's that slightly higher bar to entry than let me just install a big air quotes normal Linux distribution. Even so much that like Fedora is the distro that I use. I love Fedora. I think it hits the best balance between having a stable package set that you can install software from and still being up to date with more modern versions of these packages.
Is it because you hate Snap?
I also really don't like Snap. That's a
good. So
that's a thing.
You, me, and Jess Archer are the Fedora's user group right there.
I love Fedora. It's so funny around this conversation. I literally was writing a note to myself not, an hour ago about this. I was like, I want to use Fedora. I don't think I can use Fedora for this kind of project because everybody deploys their apps on Ubuntu servers. Everybody already knows how apt work. Everybody knows how to pull a PPA in, or if you don't, you can search one of the 500 DigitalOcean articles on how to install PHP from the on-dredge PPA, right? Like it would be just that extra step. So that one might, I don't know, I might not cave to that one yet, but that's kind of what I'm getting at. It's like
you could still build it with Nix on Fedora.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And that would technically ship fine.
But we don't want fine. We're the Laravel community.
Yeah,
perfect.
This is true. A slight inconvenience. Yeah, you're 100% right. But yeah, I think that's one of the things that's keeping me from switching to Linux full time is because every time I turn around, there's a slight inconvenience. Never mind, scrap it. Just go back to a Mac.
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta learn how to make that work. Scrap it.
Well, who knows? Maybe in 10 years when I find some free time, we'll have something put together. It'll be the year of the Linux desktop.
Says everybody every year.
Yeah.
Until I can get my iMessages into Linux, it's not going to happen.
Actually, okay, Automatic has a solution for you. Texts.
Wait,
do work. It's called Texts. TEXTS. And it will pull in your iMessages.
Is this automatic, WordPress automatic?
Yes. Yes.
No, want nothing to do with it.
You actually have to have you have to check the checkbox that says, I am not and have never been affiliated with Apple.
Yep. I want no lawsuits.
You don't have to hire a lawyer to use their software.
Oh my God. The freaking login checkbox.
I saw that this week.
What are you
Did
doing?
you see the meme that somebody made where they changed the checkbox to say something derogatory towards the CEO?
What?
Yeah,
No,
it was pretty good. It was
No,
pretty
that
good.
had to have been somebody just doing
Oh no,
inspector in their browser
they
and making it
100%
look.
did, but they did a screenshot of it. It was like, this is what it said. It's like, weird. My screen says something else. And it's a checkbox that says the CEO of
Love it.
WordPress is a D-bag. And I'm like,
Man, my heart breaks for the WordPress community. Like, I spent so long in WordPress, and I obviously don't anymore. And I do poke fun at WordPress, but I also poke fun at a lot of things, including Laravel sometimes. My heart breaks. That is not a fun thing for a
your
community
entire
to have to go
community
through.
is put between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, because like, what do you do as a community member at that point? Like, I the other day I was thinking, like, what if this was Filament? Not that it would be. I have to imagine Dan would not pull something like this. I know him pretty well.
Worse, let's say it's a Dan and Taylor Otwell feud.
Right. Like, it makes it's uncomfortable to be in. It makes, from the outside, it makes WordPress, and by extension PHP, because for a lot of people PHP is WordPress, look bad. It's not helping anyone's case. Like, I understand that there's a disagreement between WP Engine and Automatic, and however they want to resolve it, they can resolve it. But I do feel bad for the folks caught in the crossfire here.
For sure.
Yeah.
When your entire community is trapped, quite literally, between picking sides, it's never going to go well.
Yeah. I think this, man, just the absolute craziest part is that, like, if Matt really had a bone to pick here, doing this privately, behind the scenes, where nobody else really knew that this was going on, is like how you would want to approach the real legal aspect of this, not literally sending texts of, I'm extorting you right now and I'm going to go nuclear on you.
Yeah, I don't know why you would want to air your dirty laundry like that in public when if you legitimately think you have a case.
If you really think you have a leg to stand on, you don't go asking for that kind of money and all that stuff. Like, but just the way that anyway, let's not get down.
2025 is the year of Laravel, because a number of those WordPress developers are going to be like, well, what can I do?
I really, really hope Statamic is going to capitalize on this.
I was just about to say, I hope Statamic gets some great adoption from this.
Yeah. I mean, as much as I'd love to be like, come use Filament, totally different thing. You'd have to build your own WordPress and Filament to use Filament. Statamic is perfectly made for this exact thing. Or people who are using WordPress just as an admin panel, because I know I have built my fair share of sites that the WordPress side didn't manage any content whatsoever. It was literally just like, here are all the people that have signed up. Here are all the submissions that have been sent. Would you like to resend the notification email? Like, use Nova. Go out and get Laravel Nova. It is literally built for that use case. Or use Filament.
So,
I mean, I would love you to. You'd still have to build your own stuff with it, but like, Laravel has so many tools that could capture from this.
The documentation for Filament's fantastic too. You just copy and paste it. 95% of what you're looking for is already written for you.
We are like lukewarm on our documentation, so I'm really glad you said that. I appreciate that a lot.
This is just coming from
really
Laravel.
like. Yeah, well, but still though, right? We are really happy with the fact that, like you said, there's a lot of stuff you can just copy and paste direct from the docs. We're not so happy with the searchability of the docs, because we have this kind of weird, unique problem where we've bundled all of our package documentation into one docs site, because it makes sense. They all work together. Mm-hmm. But it makes the search really tricky to get right, like when you're indexing all the search queries and whatnot.
Right.
Because 1 second, in a resource, you could be building your form, right? Building your CRUD form and looking for our form builder documentation. And then the next second, you're going to hop over to, now I've got to show this on the table. And you go and you search it, and you'll find it eventually, hopefully, if the search indexing is working right. But you now, like, the sidebar has changed. You're in a different section of the website. It's just jarring to jump around. We've got some fixes in play for that. There's a lot of fun updates coming in V4, but we've got a lot of fixes for that with regards to, like, recommended recommended documentation pages, related pages, things like that are going to show up and hopefully ease that navigation around the docs, just to not confuse people.
Fair. My only complaint with Filament is the CLI tool is very verbose.
Yes. Guess it is.
And so there's some things where I'm like, no filament make. Never mind. just go to the docs and Google it or look it up again.
Shell aliases are your friend there.
Yeah.
I have a lot of them
now.
issue here, or
I have a lot of Filament's shell aliases now, but didn't then. So now I have like Filar, which is pretty funny. Filament resource, Filar.
But it gets the job done.
But it does get the job done. But yes, if I was going to bring a junior on and tell them, open up your terminal and type in PHP artisan, hold on, it's Filar for me. What is it for you?
Right. Yeah.
I'm just hearing skill issue, Carl. I'm sorry, buddy.
It's 100% a skill issue. 100%. I can't memorize anything, but
are you sure you're a Vim user?
Raycast. So I can just go in Raycast and say Filament docs.
Is that a thing?
Man, we should make maybe there is a Filament extension.
There's a doc search for Filament.
God bless whoever wrote that. Whoever wrote that. I need to buy him a beer or something.
I don't know, but yeah, there's docs here for it.
Oh my goodness.
I will install it and I'll ping you tomorrow to let you know if it's any good.
Yes.
All right, fellas. We were shooting for a 30-minute episode. Here we are at like 52 minutes. So at this point, Alex, is there any okay, you've got kids, Filament, day job. I don't know how much other time you've got in your days, but do you have any other projects or side gigs or hobbies or anything you just kind of want to chat about here for a minute?
Yeah, I can rocket through some of them. Too many projects to count.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
Bogdan from Upstate PHP and I have something brewing. I won't say much more than that because I don't know how much he wants to say about that. He's definitely the brains behind the operation. I'm just the loud, obnoxious face. So yeah, have that as kind of a side project. Got a million.
That was a super tease. We got absolutely nothing from that.
Yeah.
No, you're not gonna get anything from me on that one until I figured out what I'm allowed to say.
It could be coffee or it could be an app. I don't even know from that description.
Oh,
it could be both.
It's a terminal where you could buy coffee.
But it's written with Laravel prompts.
That's done. That's been done.
Not Laravel prompts.
Yeah. They really missed out on that one. Yeah, so I've got that as a big side project.
Okay, cool.
Got a couple other ideas brewing for open source or SaaS stuff, but nothing super firm. As far as hobbies and stuff, I'm big into F1. A big F1 fan. Go McLaren.
Oh, I was going to ask you. Hold on. Who is the best F1 team and why is it McLaren?
Because McLaren's got the best car, man. And they have Oscar Piastri, who is just a gem of a person to be on the F1 grid. He has quickly become my favorite driver.
I watched a podcast where he and his mom were on a call, and somebody asked him a question, or asked her a question. And the question was, what happened when your son called you to tell you that he got an F1? He was like, well, I asked him what color shirt I need to wear. And then and then he said orange, and I was like, oh, so you got on McLaren.
Okay, I'm following.
And then she realized right away what that meant.
Yep.
That she has to say goodbye to Daniel.
Yep.
And her and Oscar both just no. There's no way. It was just funny.
I love how much of an internet celebrity Oscar's mom has become in all of this. She'll do podcasts and wear Yuki Tsunoda shirts.
Yeah.
It's the best thing in the world. She's wonderful.
Okay, so funny story about that whole thing and where she became a meme, which is pretty funny. So Charles Leclerc, who is on the Ferrari team, adopted, big air quotes, Oscar Piastri, and his mom got on Twitter and was like, "Wait, what? We have a lot of we have to have a long conversation before that happens." And so it just became that's where she became a huge meme. It was pretty funny.
Well, and I'm pretty sure even the F1 graphics, at least for free practice or something, was Oscar Piastri Leclerc. Like they adjusted his name for it.
Yeah.
Like it was a whole thing. So
Yeah, it became a whole.
F1's great.
Whole new.
F1's great. If you don't watch F1, definitely worth it. Especially if you're like pseudo into sports, but you're like, there's too many names to remember. Like if you want to get into football and you're like, there's too many people on the team, I don't remember. There's literally 20 drivers.
Okay, I'm going
And
to say
even less,
this.
there's
Watch
10 teams.
one episode. Watch one episode of Drive to Survive on Netflix. If
Yeah.
you're not hooked on Daniel Ricciardo after that first episode,
Yeah.
I don't know how to solve any of your problems.
It's a good series. It's a good
Yeah.
series. I really like Formula One, but I haven't been able to stay on top of it very much because my wife is not interested in the least. So you guys will have to catch me up. When did McLaren become good? Because I feel like
6 months ago.
yeah, like
Very
Miami
suddenly. We were
Miami
very bad for a
through
very long
COVID
time.
up until at the end of 2023 season. I feel like they were pretty mid pack, but
Yep.
so they're doing good now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Watch
There's
that
one
happen.
For, well, here's what really happened. Red Bull. I don't want to say what I'm thinking, but they did not do well. They made some really bad decisions on the car, and McLaren definitely leaned in on that and doubled down. So McLaren, so last year Red Bull won like every freaking race by like
Except
30
one.
seconds.
Yep.
And McLaren was like, you know what? We're doing the same thing. So now Lando's winning like 3 races with like 20 seconds over Max in a lot of these races. It's crazy.
Wow, where's Mercedes these days?
Third, fourth, fifth,
Yeah,
somewhere in that area typically.
They're usually punching around with Ferrari.
Yeah.
Okay.
They've gotten
they're
better over the
swapping
past couple of
blows.
races.
They're swapping
Okay.
blows with Ferrari.
It depends on the track. I think they've got
Yeah.
2 different cars built for 2 different types of track. So
How about MotoGP? You watch that ever?
I don't, but I'm more inclined to get into it. Bogdan has
Dude.
like talked to me about it, and
Holy crap. Okay, if
Oh
you like
my
Formula
gosh.
1, but you're like, oh my God, literally
Let's ramp up the intensity by like
let's ramp up the
95%.
danger.
the risk, yes.
Let's
but,
strap
like-
them to the top of the fast-moving thing
Yeah.
instead of putting
Guys,
them in
what's-
it.
Okay, what's amazing with MotoGP is that for the
They
most
wreck and
part,
survive.
Yeah.
no, it has nothing to do with the wrecking. It is like the talent above all else of these freaking riders.
Yeah.
Like in Formula One, there is still enough of an actual raw technical speed difference between like the fastest cars and the slowest cars that it makes a statistically significant difference, right? Now,
Yeah.
the drivers can make up for a lot of that, but statistically, there's a big gap to try to like fill. But with MotoGP, yes, there is variations in the bikes, of course, but like, dude, the driver's skill, the cojones, and everything else is like the pretty much dominating factor. And seeing what those guys do is just unbelievable. As somebody that's
Inches
like
off the
tried to
ground.
do a little bit of, sport bike racing, seeing what those guys do is unbelievable.
Inches
So
off the
if you
ground.
like Formula
Really.
One, dude,
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna have to try it. It's always intrigued me. My dad rode motorcycles for a while until my mom made him stop. And I, just seeing them ride around on the, I-26 or whatever going up to Greenville is a totally different game from them being basically flat against the road as they're going
Yeah.
around turns. It
yeah,
looks intense.
bumping
I really
into
wanna
each
get into it.
other, freaking
Yeah.
like,
Right. Like a Formula One car bumps into another one, the whole thing is just, it explodes into pieces. And you've got these 2 guys on motorcycles elbowing each other. Like, it's crazy.
it's
So-
it's freaking cool. It's freaking
Yeah,
cool.
man. So yeah,
All right.
F1's a hobby. Other one that I think I should encourage people to get into, fountain pens.
No,
pens
shut
rock.
up, Alex.
No!
Oh my God,
Carl,
Are
I
we
knew
having-
we were meant to be. This is
Dude.
amazing.
guys. Are we having a moment right now? Like, I've got.
No, you
Dude,
don't.
I was super into fountain pens in college.
What? This is...
I've got a Visconti over here, guys.
Oh.
Look at this. I got like one of the sweet. I don't think this was a limited edition again, but
All
like
right,
this was
this-
the one it's volcanic rock.
I want that one so bad. Okay,
Dude,
next time you
this
come to
thing
Upstate
was-
PHP, bring that thing. I want to write with it.
Oh, okay. So you're gonna kill me.
Okay, so we're definitely gonna need an Alex 6 version 2 episode because
guys,
and all we're talking about is writing students.
I could go on for hours and hours.
This is a hobby I literally just got into. Like, my family got me like a $100 Amazon gift card, and it was like, I literally don't have any need.
Yeah.
But fountain pens sound like a cool idea. I write a lot for work.
Yeah.
And
They're
I might as well
awesome.
enjoy the experience.
Yep.
Dude, man, like in college, I was the only weirdo that used like Neanderthal utensil for taking my notes. And I got like, there was like a few people that were like famous on campus for absolutely ridiculous things. One dude was named Segway Jesus because he had hair like Jesus and he rode a Segway everywhere. I was the fountain pen guy.
I thought he was really good at making segues to podcasts.
No. He literally rode a Segway and he just looked like a Jesus. So he was Segway Jesus. No idea what his real name was. And yeah, I was the fountain pen guy and it's hilarious. And then like you actually show a couple of people like using one, like a pretty good one too, that like flows really, really nice. And they're like, okay, yeah, like it is different, but you just have to be like a weirdo that just wants to use that type of, because like at the end of the day, a good rollerball is still going to be like the more probably productive thing.
Well,
I'm
that
over
goes back
here
to the whole
all
conversation we
over.
had earlier where we like good experiences. And if you pick up a pen and it doesn't write the first time, you're like, well, that's dead.
Yeah.
It's perfectly fine. It will work the next time you use it, but
the first time
didn't.
I'm in class and I'm like doing this and like everything has started and I'm like taking this and I'm trying to get the plunger out and I've got my ink on there and then like I'm doing shit and the bottle of ink fell over on the table and so like there's just stuff and I'm just, oh no, why did I choose to use this?
The same way you think use
before
PHP.
class.
Oh man.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm just a glutton for punishment, but
nah, man, the writing experience is so worth it.
oh my god, here I am, literally getting ink on my fingers as I'm using this thing. So
Yep.
yeah,
Just filled this one up with
hilarious.
orange earlier. My hands are all orange.
Yeah,
It's part of the charm, right?
yeah.
That's insane. Okay, I didn't
Oh my
think
gosh,
that I was going
cannot
to.
believe I'm literally on a podcast with two individuals that are into fountain pens. Like I didn't think there was another person on the planet these days that was into them. So
Steven,
man.
we were on the call the other day, and I was like, "Hey, we're working on this Laravel thing. Hold on, I gotta go get a box." And Steven's like, "What's in the box?" I was like, "Oh, I got a fountain pen." And he was like, "The fuck is wrong with you?"
that's awesome, though. I mean, they're awesome little collector things. So
They really are.
whatever.
They really are.
I'd be more into watches if I could afford them.
Oh
but
man,
Nope.
You're telling
I'm
me.
just gonna stick with my Apple Watch. With
yeah,
my
I saw Alex is
basic.
rocking something over there, but I can't make out what it is.
it's a little Timex.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's a not a cheap one, but I got it for my dad and my father-in-law for like a wedding present, and I was like, oh well, they've got a sale if you get 3. I might as well get one too. And I had to stop wearing the Apple Watch. So I was getting those like phantom taps all the time, where I was like, I thought it was tapping my wrist. I was like, I gotta stop, man. If this isn't like addiction, I don't know what is.
Dude, totally.
This is gonna go back to that conversation we had earlier. I've gotten to the point where if my phone is the thing that wakes me up, I'm turning it off and going back to bed. But if I wake up from the Apple Watch tapping me on the wrist,
That's
I'm
fair.
fine.
It's really good at that. I love it as my alarm because actually I love it that my wife uses it for her alarm because she's always up. She used to be a teacher, and so she is up at like 4 a.m. every morning.
Mhm.
And I finally just was like, here, have this Apple Watch, because I was so tired of waking up to her alarm every morning. And now I don't hear it. It's great.
Right.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
All right. Can I ask Alex one last thing? And then I think we'll be kind of ready to wrap this up. Because it's totally unscripted, by the
We
way.
said
so
that
I'm
like
just kind of
5 times now.
We did.
Yeah, this is true. That was at
We
the
just keep
30-minute
finding
mark.
things in common.
I
That's
know.
the problem. I've
Okay.
got to say something really controversial. You just like end it right away.
Hold on. Let me
Spaces
hover
is
over
better
the
than
end
tabs.
recording button.
Click. Oh,
Yeah, right. I use white mode in my NeoVim, by the way.
Get out.
So, Alex, you're like your senior dev status.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's potentially going to be a lot of new like Laravel developers entering the space between maybe what's happening with WordPress, but also Laravel Cloud and some of this cool stuff that's happening around the community. Is there like one particular tip, trick, learning location, anything that you would sort of say from your experience has been really valuable to you? Totally putting him on the spot.
No, yeah, that's fine. So I actually didn't really even mention this, but I've been doing like mentoring for bringing people into tech for years now. I've headed up 3 apprenticeship programs at different places I've worked, which are a ton of fun. Like, would absolutely recommend. Again, that's another hour-long conversation, so I'll spare you the details. But I think for me, and this is maybe not so much specific for Laravel, but obviously still counts. My favorite tip that I've ever heard, and I'm 100% going to steal it from Primeagen, who's the one who said it, but I believe it wholeheartedly. The best way to level up your skill at any point during your career, but I think very specifically at the beginning, is not to watch a bunch of videos, to read a bunch of documentation, to go on somebody's live stream and, ask questions and watch them. Those are all good things. But the best thing is just butt in the saddle. Like, sit down, build something. Even if you have no idea how to do it, have something to build and actively make progress on that thing. Because it's one thing to sit there and like copy code from a tutorial. It's one thing to sit there and watch all of the insanely well-produced Laracast videos. It's another thing altogether to take those learnings and actually apply them to something that's unique to you. And I think that's one of the best things when people are coming into tech, is that they haven't been polluted by years of just working on software. So they have other hobbies and interests and things they do and want to do outside of tech. Use that, leverage that to come up with an idea. It doesn't have to be unique. It's just for you to learn, right? But come with an idea that means something to you that you'll want to see through to the end. Because, man, that time in the saddle is going to be way, way more impactful than sitting and reading a blog post will ever be.
Cool. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's Alex 6, everyone.
Yeah, man. Neovim, by the way, Fountain Pens, Formula One. We covered the gamut.
Yeah, we did. We really did.
All right. This is a fantastic episode. I don't think we know who our next guest will be at this point, but stay tuned and we'll let you guys know who that'll be in a future episode. And we will go from there. So, Karl, Alex, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we will catch everyone next time.
Sounds good.
See ya.